Hey everyone, it's Katie, doula with Yema Mamas, and I would like to talk to you guys about 5 ideas and tips for you in reducing isolation as a mom. This is something that I feel pretty passionate about and also have observed motherhood as an isolating thing, and I think there's some really easy, simple, I'm going to say simple, not always easy ways that we can step out and be known and seen in this season of motherhood. So the first thing I want to talk about is building a mom community, and I think that it's probably more beneficial if you do this before you have your baby. So researching groups like La Leche League, it's a breastfeeding support group. They typically meet in your community once a month. That's a great way. So if you know about when they're meeting, when you're feeling up to it after you have your baby, or even going while you're pregnant and meeting moms, meeting the facilitator, and start building those other moms that are in a similar season of life as you. There's postpartum support resources and groups that you could look into, other motherhood groups and play groups. I know there's tons of Facebook groups, but try and find something that is local and face-to-face and actually meets in person. I know for the Tacoma area, we have a group called Village 253, which is also Facebook and online, but the goal is to meet in person. So we not only do we utilize social media, but the end goal is that we would meet. So if you live in the Tacoma area, you should check out Village 253. The next tip in reducing isolation in motherhood is accepting help. Now, I've talked about this a little bit in some other videos, and reasons why it's hard for women and mothers in this culture for asking for help, and ways that we resist help. But I feel like for isolation, we have to push through this, and receiving help is a huge thing. So not only receiving, but actually asking for help from those that love you and those you feel safe with. The next one, and that I would love to, I could do a whole video on, is around vulnerability and transparency. Now, this is super hard to do, but I think also in breaking down these beliefs that we should be doing this on our own as moms, I think that if you can come to your community, your friends, and actually allow them to let them know what's happening inside you, vulnerably. I know that takes a lot of courage, but when you can do that, then I think naming that with other people reduces isolation. You feel known, you feel seen. I love Brené Brown's work and some of the language that she has around courage and transparency and radical vulnerability. And so I'm just going to read a couple quotes from her. Courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. Vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weakness. And I'll just read one more. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic and perfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. So I feel like this choice to have courage and be vulnerable and transparent with other people around us is it prevents isolation. It helps us to be known in those our weakest moments. It is quite a beautiful process. Okay, the next thing in another tip in reducing isolation is knowing your isolation triggers. And I'm using triggers as, especially if you know that you're prone to isolation as a person, or if you struggle with that, this one I think could be a great thing for you to practice. Now, this is something that I came to realize after my first child. I had a community of women, and I knew by my experience of isolation and even some depression after my son, I specifically asked women in my community and my partner to ask me specific questions periodically through the time. So I hope this makes sense, but I think we can, like an example might be, are you feeling seen and known? Or how are you, even just like, how are you doing? And having, but what the key part is the preparation and having someone beforehand. So when I was pregnant with my second, I asked these women, would you guys be willing to ask me these certain questions? And then even with my spouse. So even if they were seeing some signs of isolation on my part, they would ask the question and I would be, initiated with in that sense. So knowing how you're prone to isolation and asking people to ask you those specific questions, you tell them what to ask you, and I think that helps with feeling a sense of belonging and a sense of being known. Okay, the last one I think is probably the hardest, in my opinion, but super important, and it's initiate, even when you don't feel like it. And again, I talked about social media earlier, and I know as moms and being busy, or sometimes it feels easy to get connected through social media, I think it's really important that we go beyond social media and that we, even when we don't feel like it, we go to that mom's group and we connect with other women who are probably feeling the exact same way as you. But we can't wait for someone to initiate with us. We have to start. We have to initiate ourselves, especially if you're starting to feel lonely or isolated. I just want to encourage you to, don't even put your makeup on. Just if you're really struggling, just, get your baby ready and go to that group and just show up honest and vulnerable to be known. So let's initiate and go to these different groups and communities or people where you can feel known. And be honest and tell them that you're feeling this way. And I bet you will be surprised that there will be other women that will share similarly. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you can think about these 5 tips prior to having a baby, and also if you're in the midst of postpartum time or in the midst of motherhood, that maybe you can be thinking about these things and how to incorporate them in your experience as a mom. So thanks for listening. I hope that you found this helpful. And if you haven't already, come subscribe to our channel if you are interested in learning more about birth and postpartum. And you can also come and join. We have a newsletter that you can join if you want more information on these things. All right, thanks guys.